Welcome to Work From Your Happy Place, the podcast that equips you with the tools, know-how, and motivation to live your dreams and find your happy place. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter for a recap of the week's guests and a preview of what's in store. To sign up, simply text the word Happy Place with no space to 33444. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the host of Work From Your Happy Place, Belinda Ellsworth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Work From Your Happy Place. I'm very excited about our guest today. I have Dre Baldwin with me. And in just 5 years, Dre Baldwin went from his high school team's bench to a 9-year professional basketball career. At the same time, Dre built a content publishing empire, blogging since 2005 and publishing videos to YouTube starting in 2006. Dre has published over 8,000 videos, with his content being viewed over 73 million times. Dre's daily Work on Your Game podcast has over 3 million listeners. Dre has also given 4 TEDxTalks and authored 29 books. It is my pleasure to welcome Dre Baldwin to our show today.
Thank you for having me on, Belinda. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's just dive in here and let's fill in some of the gaps of that bio from when you first started in basketball, then to how you ended up being a pro player, and then how you took that and transitioned it into a whole new business as well.
Sure. So come from the city of Philadelphia, PA, live in South Florida now. But I was always into sports, played a little bit of everything growing up. I tried a little bit of football, team sport, but I never got around to the equipment part of it, like the hitting part. I never had equipment. Then moved on to baseball for a little while and finally settled on basketball around the age of 14, which is actually pretty late for someone who wants to go somewhere and play in a sport, play in college, let alone playing the pros. But I stuck with basketball and didn't make my high school team until I was a senior. Sat on the bench that 1 year that I was on the team. I only scored 2 points per game. And 2 points is not a lot in basketball, maybe in hockey or soccer, but in basketball, 2 points is not a lot. So I graduated high school. I knew I was going to college one way or another, but I didn't have a scholarship to play sports. So for me to play in college, I would have to walk on, which means, for those who don't know, I didn't have a scholarship offer. No, the coaches didn't know who I was. I literally just walked into the gym and just tried to prove myself. Luckily enough, I was able to do that. And I was playing at a college that was at the Division III level, which is the third tier of college sports. And didn't set the world on fire, but I did play in my college career. I did play college basketball. Graduated, wanted to play pro basketball, still had this vision that I could be a pro ball player, but I didn't have any prospects at that point because at the D3 level, the pro scouts aren't looking at D3 players. They're looking at the Division I guys. So my first year out of college, I worked a couple of quote unquote regular jobs. I worked as an assistant manager at Foot Locker. I sold gym memberships at this gym called Bally Total Fitness. And then 1 year removed from college, I went to this event called an exposure camp. Now, most of your audience probably has no idea what an exposure camp is. An exposure camp is like a job fair, but it's for athletes. Now, the difference with an exposure camp is that instead of just showing up and talking about what you can do and handing out your resume, you actually bring your sneakers and you prove what you can do. You actually play. So it's basically a gym full of guys who either are already playing pro basketball or who want to play pro basketball. And we're all playing with and against each other. And the audience is not just people off the street. The audience are the decision makers in the pro basketball world. So you have coaches, agents, scouts, managers, owners from professional basketball teams all over the world. They come to this one location because they're looking for players. They're looking for talent. So it's basically kind of like a casting call, basically, but for basketball. So this exposure camp, and these are not free. You had to pay to go to these events because this is your chance to make it in pro. So me and a couple of my college teammates who are also out of school, we drove from Philadelphia to Orlando. It's about a 19-hour drive. Overnight on a Friday night, hopped out of the car 9 a.m. Saturday morning at the start of the camp, and we started playing. Now, at age 23, I could do that, but I probably couldn't do it now, but I could do it then. And over that 2-day event, I played well enough to make a name for myself in the pro basketball world. I got a glowing scouting report, and I had the footage from that game. So from that experience, I was able to use that scouting report and footage to get myself an agent. And an agent in sports works the same way they do in like the literary world or acting. The agent is basically the go-between between the talent and the jobs. So I was able to sign with an agent a couple weeks after that camp. And then that agent was able to help me get my first job playing basketball overseas, which was in Lithuania in 2005. And I'll tell you one other thing that happened from this situation. That exposure camp, this was in 2005, just to give everybody a timeline here. The footage from that exposure camp was on this device called a VHS tape. And Belinda, you remember those, the VHS tapes?
I sure do.
Okay, so
I still have a few here.
Yeah, I had a few, and I asked my parents if because I left them at my parents' house when I moved out, and my dad said they threw them away. So I think I lost all my VHS tapes. So I got to verify. Next time I see them, I'll verify. But that tape, I knew that with a VHS tape, if it gets wet or it gets leave it in the sun or anything happens, it can get destroyed. But that footage was the most important footage I had as far as my basketball career went. So I needed to safeguard it. So I took that VHS tape to an audiovisual store, got to put on a data CD, put that CD in a desktop computer, and I uploaded that footage to this brand new website that I had heard about. That the rumor was you could put as much footage up there for free as you wanted. And it was called YouTube.com. So I put a quick little highlight clip of myself on YouTube and didn't think anything of it. Came back to YouTube a few months later, and there were comments on the video from random people on the internet, and they were just asking questions like, hey, who taught you how to play? How often do you practice? Can you make more videos about how to dribble, how to shoot, how to dunk, how to play defense? So what I realized was that these players, Belinda, they weren't looking for Dre Baldwin because nobody knew who I was at this time. I had barely just started my pro career, and I was playing overseas, not like I was playing for the LA Lakers. So these players, they were just an underserved community. These are basketball players who were similar to me, that they wanted to learn how to play, but there was nobody there to teach them. The thing that they had, though, is that they could go to the internet and crowdsource the knowledge from people like me. And because they saw me and I looked like I knew how to play, they said, all right, well, this guy's putting himself out there. He looks like he can play. Let's see if he can help. So they just started asking me questions. And since I was going to the gym every day anyway, and by this point I had me a little $100 digital camera, I just started bringing my camera with me to the gym every day, and I would just record whatever I did, and I would just put it on YouTube. And didn't know this was going to be a business opportunity. I wasn't doing it to build a brand or to become an influencer, because you got to remember, in 2005, we're not even using those phrases. So I was just giving it to them because I was already doing it. It didn't cost me anything extra in terms of time or energy to put a quick little video on YouTube. And little did we know, 5 years later, that started to become a thing. So I was just putting them up randomly from 2005 through maybe 2009. And it wasn't until around 2009 that I really started to look at this whole thing that I had online, when it was my website and using what we now start to call social media and these YouTube videos, that I could actually make a business out of this. And this is something that could outlast my ability to actually play basketball, because we know with sports, at some point you can't play anymore. So by halfway through my career, by around that 2008, 2010 range, that's when I realized, hey, but I can leverage what I'm doing online, and I can extend my usefulness to the marketplace through what I'm doing on the internet. And also around this time, this is when players just started asking me about mindset. They started asking me, well, you got cut from your high school team 3 times and you kept trying? Or you walked on at a Division III college and you still thought you could play pro basketball? Like, how? What were you thinking to even think that you could do that? So that's when I started talking about things like discipline and confidence and mental toughness and personal initiative, like how I got my career started, or how I was able to kind of power myself with my own energy when there was nothing in my immediate situation, nothing in my reality, quote unquote, that said I could make it as a pro basketball player. And I started doing these videos on YouTube every Monday called the Weekly Motivation. And I did the Weekly Motivation for about 400 weeks in a row. And those videos, those became the foundation for everything that I do now, which is, I'll fast forward now to today. I'll let you talk here. Is my company, Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here is we take the mental tools that help you reach the top 1% in sports, and we teach business professionals, entrepreneurs, and athletes how to use those tools at work and how to use those tools in life. So that's how all of this stuff kind of came to be.
Oh, I'm so glad that you shared that whole journey. I have a lot of people on the show, and they just skip over well, then how did that happen? Well, then how did that come to be? And so I so appreciate you, and I'm sure our listeners do too, really sharing that step-by-step process And it wasn't something that you set out to do, but it is something that you were able to create because of it. I love that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And the whole mindset, you know, I've always taught a little bit on mindset but I'm a huge skill set teacher. And so this last year though, maybe for the first time ever, I mean, I've always known it was important. I always acknowledged it and I taught on it a bit. Do you know what I mean? But this last year with the pandemic is when it probably hit me stronger than it ever has. That mindset, you got to get your mindset clear before you even can do the skill sets. And
That's right.
that's something that even after all these years of teaching skill sets and how-tos is you got to teach the why first of it, right? And people have to buy into the why of it, or how do I get my mindset really clear on what I want and why I want it and why it's important. And that allows people to actually, I find, be more open to the skill sets then of the things that they actually need to do. Is that what you've discovered as well?
Yes. And it's the mindset is the gateway to the skill set, because the principles in creating success is be, do, and have in that order. So the mindset is who you're being as a person. It's the state that you're in. Then what follows are the actions, the things that you do. That's the skill set. And then the result is the have, which is the outcomes, the results. So yes, the mindset is the gateway to everything that you're going to do as far as the skill set. Because if you give someone a set of skills, a set of tools, but they don't have the right mentality with which to use those tools, they're not going to create the outcome. Even if you tell them the exact steps and tell them exactly what to do, they won't get the outcome if they don't have the right mindset in place first. The mindset is the foundation.
Wow, I would agree with that. So what kind of 3 pointers would you give to people on really getting a clear mindset?
Wow, that's a great question. When it comes to getting a really clear mindset, the first step is really, as Napoleon Hill said in Think and Grow Rich, is a definite chief aim. What do you actually want? What is the outcome that you want to get to? Because without an aim, it's hard to score, right? You can't make a 3-pointer if you don't have a basket to actually shoot the ball at. So where are you trying to go? What do you actually want to do? And that's the first question that anybody has to ask themselves. So where is all this going? Where is all this effort going to go? What exactly do I want to produce as an outcome? The second thing is, what type of person do I need to be? Who do I need to be as a person while I'm taking whatever actions I'm going to take? What kind of person do I need to be? And this is a question that many people never ask themselves, Belinda, is that who do I need to be question. That really could be the first question. And the question in the middle is, what do I need to do? But the thing is, people usually, they have that first answer, which is what is the goal? What's the outcome that I want? Then they just say, okay, in order to achieve outcomes in life, I had to work hard. Everyone understands the concept of working hard. Not everybody does it, but everybody understands it. So that working hard concept, a lot of people just jump straight into the effort. Okay, well, let me go do this, and let me do this, and let me do that. And even if you have the exact steps from an expert like yourself who told them exactly what to do, if they don't have the being part down, they don't have the mentality part down, then they're not going to be able to execute. So the 3 steps are, what do I want to have? What do I need to do? Who do I need to be? But they're executed in the exact opposite order. Who do I need to be? What do I need to do? Then I end up having what I want to have.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those. So what do you think are the two of your greater skill sets that have really helped you in your journey?
Man, I only get to give 2.
Your superpowers. These are, I want to know what are your 2 of your superpowers? You can share 3.
Number 1 is discipline. And it's whenever I talk about the work on your game philosophy, or just introducing what I talk about to anyone, I start with discipline. Discipline to show up every single day and do the work. That's how I learned how to play basketball. I mean, nobody taught me how to play. I don't have any brothers. I didn't have anybody take me under their wing and say, all right, here's how you practice. I basically figured it out on my own. I would just go to the basketball court with my ball and just try stuff until stuff started working. So that is what I did in sports. And even then, when I got into business, it wasn't until later that I realized that I was in business. At first, I was just putting stuff on YouTube, and then it was the ad revenue came in. Then I started making my own products and selling them, but I didn't really have a strategy behind what I was doing. And it was only later that I really started looking at, all right, how do I get some strategy in place here? But I was able to generate revenue and make money. I had a business going and didn't even know what I was doing. And the reason why it worked, Belinda, is because I was just showing up so consistently. I was putting out content every single day. I was creating new products every single week. And I had an audience. I had a source of who I could sell it directly to. So it was working, even though I didn't know what I was doing, simply because my consistency was able to overcome my ignorance when it came to business. So the number one thing would be discipline. And the number two, I would have to say, is mental toughness. And mental toughness, the way that I describe it, is your willingness to continue to be disciplined and continue to be confident, even though the plans that you have been executing on are not working. So even though you're being disciplined and you're being confident and that's supposed to produce results, let's say that it is not, do you keep showing up? All right, do you still show up the next day? Do you still believe that your plan is going to work out? And just from the little bit of my story that I told you here, I had many times where it was pretty obvious, so to speak, that my plan was not going to work, but I kept going anyway. And that mental toughness, that some people may call it stick-to-itiveness or grit or perseverance or persistence. In this case, they're kind of all interchangeable. Do you just keep showing up even when you're not getting the results that you expected to get? And many of us in life, when we're not getting the results we expect, we just stop showing up because maybe it's just the embarrassment, or we just don't want to keep trying at something that is clearly not working. And we all know that all the cliches and the sayings about it is that the outcomes that we want, usually you have to go through those dark periods, but many of us can't persist through those dark periods in order to get to that outcome that we want. So those two things, discipline, mental toughness.
I'm sure that, so you're dealing with sort of your own level of rejection, but I know how the sports world is. And you're right. 14 was, you're already late to the game. You know what I mean? Right. And now we got high school, you barely play, you got college. So I'm sure along that way, not only did you have your own levels of rejection, but you probably had a ton of people telling you to give up on it.
Absolutely. And either tell me to give up or just being indifferent to the fact that, all right, this guy's playing basketball. Because mind you, I'm 14. This is 14 through early 20s. I graduated college at 22. So it's not like playing basketball is a negative thing. I wasn't hurting myself by playing basketball. But it's like, all right, at some point, this basketball thing's going to come to an end for this kid. And he's going to have to get serious about figuring out what he's going to do with his life. Because there are plenty of kids who are 18, 21, who play basketball. They're not trying to go to the NBA or trying to play pro, but they like to play for fun. So someone could have looked at me and said, all right, well, he's just playing for fun. Eventually, the jig will be up and he's going to have to figure out something to do. But then when I graduated from college and I'm telling my parents, well, I'm going to play professional basketball overseas. And my mom is like not understanding because she's asking me questions. And my mom doesn't know professional sports like that. I mean, she knows like Michael Jordan on TV. But when I told her I wanted to be a pro basketball player, she just started asking me a series of very logical, reasonable questions. She asked me things like, do you have a job offer? Do you have a plan? Do you have any prospects? Do you have a strategy on how you're actually going to do this? And the answers to the questions were no, 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 and no. So for her, again, not knowing professional sports, those are good questions because you say you're going to do something as a job. Okay, well, how are you going to get the job? I didn't have an answer to the question. So she was 100% right to ask the questions. And when I couldn't answer them, well, she's like, and she didn't say it as nicely as I'm saying it, but she basically said, well, look, you need to go figure out something to do because you're a grown man now. You have a college degree. Now you're back living in this house. Like, what are you going to do? That's why I had to bite the bullet and I had to work, go get a job at Foot Locker my first year out. And once I took that job, I figured in my mind that most people who knew me figured, all right, well, Dre's going to hopefully figure something out, but it's probably over for basketball because look what he's doing now. But I just kept it in the back of my mind the entire time. That whole year when I was out of the game was, when's the opportunity? I was just looking for that next opportunity. And when I saw that exposure camp, I said, okay, that's going to be my shot. And these camps, it's not like these camps are a month long. It's 2 days. You get 2 days to go improve yourself. And mind you, it's a meat market because everybody there is trying to prove themselves. So it's not an easy shot.
And how did you hear about the exposure camps? Like, were you researching that or how did you find out that existed?
Well, there are websites out there about
Okay.
overseas basketball. It's not a ton of information, but they'll just list all the exposure camps. So I saw it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's great for listeners that are hearing you and kind of thinking about this. All right. So let's talk about outstanding accomplishment, obviously, transitioning your business. But is there a standout moment that is like, wow, that was a great accolade, or a moment in your business that was just like, wow, that moment when you go like, I'm doing all right. This is working. Like, was there a standout moment of accomplishment in this?
Do you mean in sports or in business outside of sports?
Either one. So
Either
probably
one.
probably in the business end of it.
Okay.
But
So
you certainly can share that about basketball. I'm sure when you got hired with an overseas team, that was probably that moment where you're like, man, I did it. I
yeah,
stuck with it. And
exactly.
look at me. Here I am.
Yeah, the first time I got the plane ticket, and I'm flying to from Philadelphia, where I'm from, to Frankfurt, Germany, and then to Kaunas, Lithuania, or I actually flew into Vilnius. Then you drive to Kaunas. That was the moment, just knowing that I actually did
Yeah.
it, and I'm able to. I had barely even left the state of Pennsylvania, let alone left the country by that point in my
Wow.
life. So to know I'm getting on a plane to go overseas, I'm on Google just looking up where is Lithuania. I didn't even know where it was on the map. And now I'm about to go fly there and play basketball. So it was a great moment just to know that the effort had finally paid off and I made it. So that would be that moment. As far as in the business world, I would say when I did one of my TEDx talks on where I talked about confidence and mental toughness and just talked about how you can build it even if you don't have it. And it was really a lot of the material from that talk was sourced from all these YouTube videos that I had done over the years, and not even the videos, honestly, Belinda, it was the comments, because I've always engaged in the comments with my listeners. Now, I don't suggest everybody go read YouTube comments these days, but I have always engaged in the comment section on my videos. So even when I was talking about mindset, players would often ask me a lot of questions about confidence and about mental toughness. And even in basketball, because these players would be going through the same situations that I had gone through, so they would ask me for guidance. So when I put together that TED Talk, which was in 2016, so I'd already been on YouTube for over a decade by that point, it was
Wow.
really a culmination of a lot of stuff that I had already been talking about. So putting that together, it was really fun because we went and grabbed screenshots of comments from YouTube and put it on the screen behind me while I was talking. So it was really kind of a salute to all my audience over the years that I was able to integrate that into the talk.
Oh, that's awesome. I bet that was, and a lot of people ask, how do you even create a TED Talk? So you did a really great kind of explanation there of that, because people ask that question all the time.
Yeah, it's a challenge because it's funny because you would think it'd be easier because it's shorter, but it actually makes it harder because
Sure.
us speakers, we're used to talking for an hour, but now you only got 15 minutes. So you
Right.
put your best stuff in there and make it relevant enough that they can get the whole idea in less time.
All right. So what was an obstacle? What's been maybe an obstacle or something that you have encountered along the way, and how did you work through it?
I would say we move out of basketball, and I was transitioning out of sports, and I knew that it was time for me to move out of basketball. So this is 2014, 2015 when I stopped playing ball and I go into entrepreneurship. And I knew that I wanted to get into professional speaking, but I didn't really know how or when or what. I didn't know anything about the industry. So I remember there was actually a guy I was playing basketball with. He's the one who mentioned to me, hey, you ever heard of this thing called Toastmasters? I had heard of it, but I didn't know what it was. So then I went to a Toastmasters meeting here in South Beach. And I just said, when I was talking to the room, like, hey, I just want to learn how to get into professional speaking. I don't know when or where, but I came here because somebody told me that maybe I could find out some information here. And there happened to be this random guy in the audience. He was a former football player, and he was also trying to get into professional speaking. And the funny thing is, I didn't know who he was because, with football players, they wear the helmet, so you don't know their faces. I knew his name when he told me, but I didn't know his face. So he says, well, look, I'm going to a professional speaking conference, and whoever I meet there, I'll give you their information. He threw me one person's information, and that person was in South Florida. They became my mentor. They were already in the industry. and they told me a lot. And I basically took everything that they told me and I executed on it. But the challenge for me when I was trying to get into that was that when I would reach out to event coordinators and meeting planners, whenever I could get them on the phone,
Exactly.
they were saying, well, look, it's cool that you have all these videos on YouTube, but being on the stage and talking is way different from sitting in front of a camera and talking. Now, I knew that I could perform on the stage, but they didn't know. So the challenge was I didn't have any proof. And this is something that I tell athletes and I tell business people all the time, is that number one indicator of future performance is past performance, right? So if you want to get a speaking gig, the best thing you can have is a different speaking gig that you already did. So you can show to them, hey, I can get on the stage and perform. Look at this video. I didn't have anything. So this is what I started doing. I would go to the Toastmasters meetings, and when it was my turn to speak, I would film myself on my phone, and I would take those videos and I would use those as my proof. Like, hey, here's me on the stage. There's only 10 people in the room, but it's me speaking and showing that I can do it. So that's how I really started to build my, I guess you could say, my resume. And then I was finally able, the first ever speaking gig I did was down here in South Florida. I was in Boca Raton. It was at the Boca Chamber of Commerce. And a woman just reached out to me and she said, I remember you reached out to us months ago and you said something about YouTube. And I said, yeah. She said, well, we're doing this event at the college and we just need somebody to speak about using YouTube for business. We have one guy for Facebook, one for Twitter, one for LinkedIn. Can you be the guy for YouTube? And I said, yes. And they said, yeah, you get 20 minutes. And that's how that was my first ever speaking gig. And they gave me the video. The main reason I did it was that video because I knew I needed the proof. And that's how I was able to start building some traction for myself to get into the speaking business. And then, next came TED Talks. And then eventually I was able to, do keynotes and things like that. And still going now.
Oh, that's fantastic. So this is our sort of signature question of the show. And that is, what does working from your happy place mean to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Working from your happy place, to me, it means doing something that speaks from your soul, where you're really speaking from who you truly are and doing what you truly want to do. And that's something that I think someone from the outside looking in can probably tell when someone's working from their happy place. When you're doing something that is really speaking from who you truly are as a person, people can feel the energy and the passion behind your work. Even if you're not talking, they can feel it if you're a cook or a chef, they can feel it in the way that you make the food. If you're an athlete, they can feel it in the way that you play the game. If you're a speaker, they can feel it in the way that you talk about your subject, whatever it is that you're talking about. So that's what I think working from your happy place. That's what I feel that it means, is that you're doing something that people can tell, like, this person is really all in on this thing, whatever that thing happens to be.
So I just want to share this with our listeners because, so I've been doing this for about 4.5 years now, and you were the first person. And we get pitched every week some 30, 40, 50 people that want to be on the show. And we have to be very strategic. And now I've divided it between artists and business entrepreneurs. And you were honestly the first that sent me. So for all of our listeners, he sent a video telling me why he needed to be on my show and what he would bring to the table and being on the show. And it caught the attention of the person you passed through. You caught her attention because of it. And she said, I want you to listen to this guy. He sent you a video and nobody's ever done that. So, that caught my attention. So I listened to it and we did. And not even based on anything else. I'm like, he deserves to be on the show for some of that video. Like, that was just really brilliant. But it's one of those outside of the box things, which should be really, like, my artists should be sending. Some do send samples of their work. But people should be pitching themselves, and they just send this one sheeter and they all look the same and they're outlined exactly the same. And it's hard for somebody on the other side to go, well, who's the standout, So kudos to you for doing that.
Oh, well, thank you. I've always tried to figure out what I can do that everybody else is not going to do. And usually these days, especially in this copy paste world that we have, is doing something that doesn't scale. So that doesn't scale, but people remember it. So I'm glad
that's absolutely right. So what advice would you give to others wanting to sort of enter this entrepreneurial world?
Wow. To enter the entrepreneurial world, several things I could tell people, but I'll narrow it down to a few. Number one is just figure out who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. That's the first question. I mean, that's entrepreneurship right there at its core. Who are you serving and how are you helping them? What change are you going to help them create? That's the first thing. The next thing is, and this is something that I didn't do when I first started, but if I was able to start over again, I could tell myself is get the information, get the knowledge from people who are already in the game. Do not try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to figure it all out on your own. It will take too long. Get the information from people who are there. So listen to podcasts like Work From Your Happy Place. Go read the books. Go buy a ticket and go to the conferences and meet people, shake their hands, like hire a coach. These are all things that I eventually did, but I wasn't doing when I first started because I didn't know. I was just ignorant of my own ignorance. But because now I know these things, I would tell somebody else. If I was telling myself, that's what I tell myself to do. And the third thing is iterate quickly. So in business, we don't have forever to make every mistake. And when we have new ideas, I'm sure you as an entrepreneur, me as an entrepreneur, we've all had ideas that didn't work. We put out products that didn't sell. We had things that we tried that just ended up not being the right idea. But we can't take too long to realize it's the wrong idea before we move on to the next one. So that quick iteration. All right, let's put this out. Let's send some people to it. Let's put an email out. All right, did this work? Yes or no? We got to have our KPIs to know if it works or it doesn't. All right, that's working. Keep it. That's not working. Kill it. Let's move on to the next one. Then the next one, until we can find that thing that does work. And none of us is a genius, so we don't always know what's going to work, what's not, but we have to be willing to try things. But at the same time, we're on that clock. We're all on the clock in life. So we don't have forever. So we got to be able to move quickly, iterate quickly, and get rid of stuff that doesn't work and then keep the things that do. And this is just part of the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. It's fun to me. So
it is. But and just because you talk about the mental aspect of it, I mean, I've certainly had everything you just described. I've gone through, and and you do. I'm willing to say, okay, wow, that was not a good idea. But it isn't just like saying, okay, that didn't sell, or move on. Like we're moving away from that. But it's mentally moving away from it. And that's where I see people get so hung up is they keep still talking about why it didn't work. And people will say to me, didn't you try to do this and whatever? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's done, long gone. Like I already put that behind me. That's in the rearview mirror. You know what I mean? Like we have moved on. But there is a ton of people that just keep wanting to talk about, oh yeah, I had this thing and I invested all this in it and it just, then this just didn't happen. It's like, I don't know. They stay in this place of failure mindset or victim mindset of like, and just move on to your next thing because it's there. I don't know. That's where I see people get hung up in it. They're still living it, even when it didn't work.
You're right. And the way I describe that is replaying bad movies. It's kind of like if you go to the movies, all right, you go to the movies or you turn on, I guess, Netflix nowadays and you see a movie that sucks, or you know the movie sucked, or you're not going to watch it again because you know that it sucked. And if one of your friends is thinking about watching it, you're going to tell them what you think. You're going to get them your opinion. You're not going to keep watching that movie over and over again. But this is what a lot of people do in life. They go through that bad movie, and then they just keep watching it. I'm like, you already know it sucked. Stop watching it.
That's a great analogy. I love that. So what are some new and exciting things that you're working on? And then tell our listeners how they can find you.
Well, number one thing I'm working on right now is we're putting together a live event down here in South Florida that'll be in late August. But by the time this comes out, it'll be too late for anybody to get a ticket. But I do have a new book coming out in August. Can I mention that? Can I tell people about that? Okay, so my new book is, I'm holding it up here. I don't know if people are listening or watching, but this is called The Third Day. And it's a decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. And what The Third Day is about is any situation in your life when the newness has worn off, the novelty is gone, is one of those days. Everybody who's listening has had one of those days. We have it in sports. You have it at work. We have it in our relationships. You have it with your kids. We all have those days. So the third day is one of those days, but it's about the decision that you make on those days. What do you do? Do you still show up the next day? Do you bring the best energy? Do you still show up as if you're having a great day? If somebody from the outside looking in, could they tell that you're having a bad day? Could they tell you're having a great day? Or is it the same energy that you bring consistently as a professional? And one of the things that I tell, especially up and coming people, the key attribute of a professional is the fact that you show up every single day and perform regardless of how you feel. Whether you're feeling great, whether you're feeling horrible, the customer shouldn't be able to tell. Your listeners should not be able to tell. It should sound exactly the same and look and feel exactly the same every single time. Because if you look at the great athletic performers, the Michael Jordans, the LeBron Jameses, it's every game they have a good game. Every time. And you don't know what's going on in their lives because they're consistent in their performance. And it's the same thing in companies. You look at Apple, or you look at, I don't know, what's another company that's well known, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota. The products are exactly the same every time. You don't know if they're having a good day or a bad day. They are consistent. And that's what the third day is about, that discipline and consistency of performance every single time. Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Where can you get the book? I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah, tell us where you can get the book and tell us where they can find you, follow you.
Okay. People can get the book for free. I get this book away for free. We just ask people to cover the shipping. All you had to do to just cover the shipping by going to thirddaybook.com. That's spelled out, thirddaybook.com. Book's free. Just cover the shipping. And where can people find me? Well, I'm everywhere online. I'm on every social media platform except TikTok. I've been using it a little bit, but not that much. Instagram is the one I'm probably the most active on. My Instagram is just my name, Dre Baldwin. And my homepage website is dreallday.com.
Oh, I love that. Well, this has been a pleasure having you on the show. It's been a lot of fun and very insightful. Lots of words of wisdom. I hope many of our listeners will go back and listen to it again. I always find that I listen to podcasts a lot when I'm walking or on the treadmill or, doing whatever. And man, there are some that I go, all right, I need to go back and listen to this again with my notebook. And this has been one of those interviews that I hope our people will, if they're in their commute or wherever they are, that they'll say, okay, I'm going to save this one and go back and listen to it when I have some time to take some notes, because you gave some real tangible, not only ideas and mindset, but you gave some real action steps of kind of how you did it and what people can do. And I appreciate that so much.
Well, I appreciate you offering me to share your platform with me, and I hope your audience got some value from this.
Great. So thanks everyone for joining us today and listening in. And if you could subscribe or follow, you won't miss a single one of our awesome interviews. We appreciate a rate and review. And the best compliment that you can give either one of us is to share this with a friend. So thanks for tuning in to Work From Your Happy Place. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us at Work From Your Happy Place. If you like what you hear, please share it with your friends and be sure to rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher. For a free gift on finding your own happy place, please visit workfromyourhappyplace.com and click on the free audio button. Thanks again for listening.